Let it go, it damages small business, it damages big business, it damages families, and you've really got to use every element of policy within your control to rein it in. I fully concede there are some of those elements which are beyond the control of national governments. But that doesn't mean just throw your hands up in the air and say, well...
And beyond the control of reserve banks.
Or beyond the control of the instruments of national economic policy.
And yet they'll use this single lever of interest rates, no matter what.
Well, as I said, if you're looking at a $1.2 trillion economy, you've got a budget sector over here which represents about $300 billion. That has an impact. Okay. That's why we've been serious about producing a significant surplus of $22 billion, which our opponents are rating to the tune of a similar amount over time. Then you've got monetary policy. Does it, together with fiscal policy, equal a total equation? No, because you've got factors beyond national control. But it doesn't mean, therefore, that you're absolved of acting responsibly, because if you can rein in some of those pressures, it's far better in relative terms than not acting at all.
All right, let's shift gears and we'll take a question from Sophia Marinos.
I'm a daughter of ageing parents and granddaughter of older grandparents. Given senior citizens barely got a mention at the 2020 summit or in the budget, how is the government going to care for our elderly?
Well, I think in the 2020 summit, I think in the session which dealt with the future of our communities, there was a big discussion about housing and homelessness, and there was a big discussion, as I understand, about income support payments, including those for our retirees and seniors as well. This is a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge. Right now we have 2 million Australians who are currently on the age pension. We have, on top of that, about 400,000 to 500,000 Australians who are receiving either carer's payment or carer's allowance. We have a further 700,000 Australians who are receiving the disability support pension. Altogether, 3.5 million Australians. That's more than one in seven of our population. And if you look at a proportion of our total budget, it's a huge slice of budget. Now, what can you do about that, given that we've been in office for 5 months? Well, you can't turn around the Queen Mary overnight. This problem's been emerging for many, many years and compounded in terms of the cost of living pressures by our seniors because of what's happening on petrol prices and food prices and rents. But what we've done in this budget for seniors is that there is a $5.2 billion additional set of payments for seniors compared with what existed the previous year. It means that in the case of individual seniors that there is a $900 additional payment per year per senior. Does that solve all problems? Of course it doesn't. And that's why we're having the question of our seniors and their long-term dependency on retirement income examined by the Henry Commission of Inquiry, which is looking at tax, income support and retirement income, and it will report sometime next year. We're mindful of the pressures. It's really tough out there. We've made one step in this budget, both in terms of these greater payments for seniors and for carers and for those on disability support pension, but we just see that as one step. We've got to wait for this more comprehensive review to conclude itself. That'll be next year, and you'll see further action flowing from it.
Mr Rudd, people are watching from all around the country, and we've got a comment from outside the studio from Stephen Jones from Dungog in New South Wales, sent us an email. He says, I'm a disabled pensioner of 52 years old. I've been suffering from chronic pain and fatigue syndrome for the past 12 years, and I've been without a set of teeth or any teeth for 2 years, as I cannot afford to pay any more for a new set of dentures, having paid over $2,000 myself. What can you do for him?
Well, the first thing that we have done, and I'm always reluctant to comment on an individual's circumstances, because you don't know all the details, you don't know what criteria they fit. But can I just speak more broadly about dental policy for people who have real problems to make ends meet? In 1996, our predecessors abolished the Commonwealth Dental Program. In our first budget, we have re-established the Commonwealth Dental Program to the tune of some $300 million. From memory, that will pay for something like an additional 1 million treatments. Now, that actually helps. If you go to the public dental hospitals of Australia and look at the waiting times for people seeking to get access, the waiting times are between 2 years, 2.5 years, sometimes 3 years. It's inhuman. It's just wrong. Again, this is one step in the right direction. But as I said, having been in office for 5 months, it's very difficult to look at a waiting list which has been accumulating for the last decade and plus and fix it. On the actual prosthetics, though, that the gentleman refers to, I can't comment in terms of whether that's embraced within the program or not. But can I say, in terms of getting to a dentist, an affordable dentist, we now have provided those payments to re-establish a scheme which is designed for low-income earners.
All right, you're watching the very first episode of Q&A with the Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd. Tonight's program is slightly different from the usual Q&A format. Most of our programs will feature a panel of at least 2 MPs and 3 or perhaps 4 interesting and opinionated people who'll debate the issues of the day. Next week's panel, for example, will include the Housing Minister, Tanya Plibersek, the opposition frontbencher, Tony Abbott, and the Leader of the Greens, Bob Brown. But now our next question comes from Nick Agafonov.
Prime Minister, I'm 32 and my wife is 37. We're renting and have a combined income of about 100k, and we want to have a baby because my wife's clock's ticking. If the baby bonus is mean tested, we might miss out on any benefits directly related to the birth of our child. This means we'll have to draw heavily on our home loan deposit we've been saving for 5 years and be squeezed in other ways. So I'm asking you, what do you think we should do? A, have a baby now, no matter what, and risk losing our deposit. And risk losing our deposit.
Unless you want to have a chat afterwards.
Or B, put off having a baby for a couple more years and risk missing out on a family.
Look, on the baby bonus, which we've increased in this budget to $5,000, the means test doesn't kick in until $150,000, so I don't know what your income circumstances are. There is no magic dividing line here, but as a government you've got to start forming a judgment about how far you can go in providing these and other payments. And that's the line we've come to. Some will criticise it because they fall just one side or the other, but that's the best that we have come up with. Secondly, you talk about saving to buy a house, and I think that's a huge challenge. Housing affordability, out there staring Australia in the face right now. Our predecessors didn't even have a housing minister, let alone a housing affordability policy. We have $2 billion worth of new programs out there on housing affordability, including, for example, if you're just starting out and saving for that deposit, we now have a first home savers support system whereby we, the government, assist you in saving for over a 5-year period to put together a suitable deposit for a house and tax it at preferential superannuation fund type rates. That's the way in which we can help. But on the baby bonus, if you stay this side of 150, then I don't wish to prescribe timetables for you, but work it out yourself.
OK. We've got an SMS question here from Andrew Leach, a Triple J listener. Here's his question.
Now I'm really worried.
Will you let your religious beliefs influence the way you run the country?
You're elected as a secular political leader. What I have by way of a private religious belief, I've always been upfront about that, sort of a common garden variety Christian, that's about it. But no, you're elected on the basis of the views you put to the Australian people, the policies you put to the Australian people, that's the program you deliver. And all views on the future of this nation have to be out there in that great sort of secular contest of ideas called the Australian Parliament. That's the way in which I would propose to govern as Prime Minister. And people may have religious views or they may not. For me, that is not relevant to the equation.
OK, there's a gentleman with his hand up there.
G'day. You've done a lot for, said you've done a lot for gay people in the last couple of weeks, and that should be applauded. How do you think religious people on the right are going to take that, and how can you present leadership in these issues as we go forward?
Oh, look, I think when it comes to same-sex couples, for example, what we said before the election is what we're now doing. We said that when it comes to same-sex couples, we would remove every element of discriminatory legislation in practical areas like tax, superannuation, social security, inheritance, all those things. The Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission brought out a report just prior to the election, or last year sometime, which said there are about 40 or so areas of national legislation where these forms of discrimination existed. What we've done is, through the Attorney-General, scrutinised the bills. In fact, there are 90. And he's now embarked upon a program of legislative reform that will occur during the second